go to the Supreme Court. But be that as it may, they too need to show that they are obedient citizens by obeying judgment of people.
All right, let's hear from Barrister Jamala. How are you reacting? Oh, let's not go with reactions. What is your interpretation of what happened at the Court of Appeal yesterday?
Sincerely speaking, what happened yesterday, the extent that it was undefended at the court below. It was undefended, so the court below had just one-sided evidence to give its judgment. Whatever procedural defect or somersault the defendant legal team considered by withdrawing their application. So I will not go into that, but I'm looking at to what effect the legal implications of the judgment of yesterday. That is exactly what I'm looking at. I don't want to look at what the legal team for the defendant did. What is the implication of the judgment?
Well, I'd like to know that. What's the implication?
To my mind, subject to the right of appeal by the defendant and respondent in the circumstance. I think some of the pronouncement as was delivered yesterday is also going to be an academic exercise.
How do you mean?
The judgment of the Court of Appeal that emanated yesterday took us back to what we call maintaining status quo ante bellum. Now, remember, the action as filed by the Egbule faction predates their defection. And so the judgment of Omotosho, confirmed by the Court of Appeal, if taken hook, line, and sinker, is an interpretation of the Constitution as though the House of Assembly never had any problems of defection, as though the Assembly is complete, and they went to court for the interpretations of the provisions of the Constitution with respect to the executive, their relationship. Is the law mandating the governor to relate with them? That was what Omotosho did, as confirmed.
Okay.
So it predates defection. So the legal status, again, of these defectors have not been determined.
Okay, so we'll get to that, right? But the question I want to ask you, you've said, given the fact that the defendants did not present themselves at the lower court.
Yeah. Mr. Kalada, sorry to interject. I can barely hear what both of you are conversing.
You can't hear us?
So I can barely hear us.
Yes, I think that your background music is a bit loud and I can barely hear you.
Can you hear it now?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, sorry about that. So you were saying not too long ago that the defendants not present at the lower court was a big problem at the Court of Appeal. Do you think going to the Supreme Court is a wise decision?
The question of jurisdiction can be raised at any point in time. Although, yes, they withdrew their defense, acting in good faith as to the directive of Mr. President, which is not a justification as to whether or not the judgment, of course, should be one-sided. They can also raise the issue of jurisdiction at any point, whether at the appellate court or the Court of Appeal.
So you think jurisdiction is something the Federal High Court did not have?
In some of the issues raised, in some of the questions raised for determination.
Like, give me example.
Like the River State budget.
Okay, interesting.
The nullification of that budget.
Okay.
Which has to do is a state law, and therefore the Federal High Court has no jurisdiction to entertain.
But then again, the Federal High Court has got jurisdiction over speakership positions, right?
The question as to, if you look at Section 92, the question as to whether there is vacancy or not.
Okay.
In the House of Assembly, is a position left for the Federal High Court to determine.
Okay. Now let's go back to Barrister Egbule. Barrister Egbule, can you hear me clearly now, please?
Mr. Kalada.
Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, but like I said that the background music from the end is actually loud. So
okay. Is it better now?
It's better.
Fantastic.
I can hear you now.
Fantastic. Now, my other guest, Barrister Jamala, did say that yes, the Court of Appeal, what it did was according to law, given the fact that the defendant did not put in a defense at the lower court. However, the judgment still does not touch on defection. Do you agree? Because, the River State government has said, we're yet to touch on the issue of defection, so we may not just recognize the Martin Egbule faction. So what's your argument then?
Mr. Kalada, let me say this. I read the press statement from They embattled Honorable Attorney General of Rivers State. I say
let's leave it at Attorney.
Let's
leave it at Attorney General.
Okay.
Mr. Kalada just told them.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Kalada, I have a right to freedom of expression.
Okay, go ahead.
I said
But there are
the
limits.
word embattled is not an offensive word.
It's
I
not
said
actually.
embattled Attorney General. If you
Okay.
give me opportunity, I will explain what I mean.
Go ahead. Let's hear you.
Now, everything relating to his screening appointment have been quashed by the Court of Appeal. If anybody says it's not embattled, why is the Attorney General appealing? So I said embattled Attorney General of Rivers State. I read his press statement. And you see, the best I can say is either somebody is speaking out of patent ignorance or someone is deliberately being mischievous. Mr. Kalada, look at one of the orders granted by Honorable Justice Omotosho. Let me read it for you. And anybody who comes to speak on Honorable Justice Omotosho's judgment and say he didn't deliberate on who the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly is, obviously that person has not read the judgment. See what it says. 1, it says, an order is hereby made restraining the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 16th defendants, their agents, servants, hirelings, and workmen in any manner or howsoever from stopping or preventing the plaintiffs and applicants, members and staff of the first plaintiff from having access in.
I guess we lost connection there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Egbule?
Mr. Kalada, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. We lost connection for a bit. So you were reading. Go ahead.
And transacting of the business of the first plaintiff, which is the River State House of Assembly. Another is restoring the status quo as at 26.23. Then it says to merit the proceeds of the elevations. The name River State Assembly to show organized by the legislature, which is not including an ordinary presentation of budget and budget bond about the so-called budget appropriation bill and setting aside budget appropriation bill. When the Court of Appeal asked the governor to go and represent the budget, so since the issue of the reflection of his car is not one of the grounds decided by the Court of Appeal, ask that person, will that person now have a right to determine that action? You live Port Harcourt. You are a male, you are adult. Anybody who changes that joint will go appeal. If they choose to change doesn't challenge you. If they say that is not one of the grounds for which the Court of Appeal, they say what they have to.
We'll be
To access 92.3 Nigeria info about 27 okay, so we went for break. To reasons defection or without looking at it. Do you agree, Jamala? Do you agree that there's
a sense of responsibility with respect to my very good friend Godspower? I would appreciate if you can read a section of that joint that validates the actions of Egbule and others defected sometimes on December 11th, if my memory serves me right, on that date of the action. Assuming there was a defection, But before answering that, I laid the foundation that the Egbule's faction, sensing the disagreement that, unknown to us, was existing between the executive and the legislature, approached the Federal High Court asking for the determination of some questions with regards to the operations of the governor, the executive arm, and the executive. They have, at that material time, there was never a defection. It was after that process that they defected. So the issue as to legitimacy of the members of the House of Assembly was never in question at the material time. But what was in question was whether or not the governor can stop on duties provided by law. The issue as to speakership was never questioned at a particular time. And
but there was the question of whether it was Edison or it was Martin.
That was after.
Beautiful.
That was before.
I'm coming.
Okay, go ahead.
When the disagreement as to it was time for them to remove Edison as the speaker. This already exists.
I want to take you back to sometime November.
Yes.
There was there was that argument that what took place.
The River State could give and recognize them as member of the Assembly.
But remember, there was negative, and then they got
very well.
And you remember the case.
Whoever that trial before this was about Edison never did that capacity. But have been put to the Edison faction. But I'm
going to give the State High Court because I think we've talked on jurisdiction.
Whether there is jurisdiction or not is a question of the court to determine, but acting on the valid order of court, these set of persons acted in the capacity that the court recognized them, and the governor presented the budget. So it is not true that Section 1 and 2 of the Constitution was interpreted by your Omotosho, then valid the Court of Appeal. I will appreciate if my friend can battle to the debate was divided. Why the actions of Egbule prevent that defection? The issue as to the legitimacy is yet to be decided. A court is acting upon the recognized powers of court. Activated subsection 2.
But can he?
Now, have you, if that in the of a model, my friends should guide me proper if the Court of Appeal also validated that position.
Let's go to him now. Vice Egbule, you have the floor.
Let me quickly. I was reading orders that Honorable Omotosho made.
Okay.
The fourth order. An order is hereby made restraining the 11th defendant from howsoever or in whatsoever manner so United House of Assembly under the leadership of the second plaintiff and speaker, that Right Honorable Martin Egbule. You see, Mr. Kalada, what I do not appreciate is when we continue to make the speakership of the River State House of Assembly appear like a recurring decimal, something that will not end. It has ended. Unfortunately, so many persons would not want to accept the verdict of the courts. Do not forget that the Federal High Court, in the suit instituted by the APP, the Federal High Court admonished the APP and said, you cannot ask me to sit on appeal over a judgment of my brother, Honorable Justice Omotosho. Please appeal that judgment of Honorable Justice Omotosho, because that judgment of Honorable Justice Omotosho encompasses all the issues that you have brought before me. Now the appeal, the governor went to appeal that of Honorable Justice Omotosho. The judgment is now out. Somebody is still telling the public that Martins should go to court and contest whether he's a speaker or not. Your name is Kalada. Somebody is asking you to go to court for the court to validate that is your name. This is a public conversation. But it matters what we just hold on.
Godspower, I want to say something, right? I want to ask you a question. Okay. Now,
yes,
you have said on this show that and so have gone to court. This is my 26th about 25 May. You tell us whether they moved in the right way or not.
That argument is died and forever. That's the argument they made in the suit instituted by the APP. I have been reading all the orders made by Honorable Justice Omotosho. What else do you want me to do? The judgment quashed everything that Right Honorable Edison did. The judgment recognized Right Honorable Martin Egbule as the Speaker of the River State House of Assembly. The judgment quashed the presentation of the budget to Right Honorable Edison. The judgment recognized Right Honorable Martin Egbule as the Speaker of the River State House of Assembly. The governor has now gone on appeal. The appeal has upheld the judgment of Honorable Justice Omotosho. Where else do you want to go to determine those issues? Any federal high court, let me land, any federal high court you go to, that would be an abuse of court. They will still refer you back to this the same way they did to APP. They are now telling you that they are waiting on the Supreme Court. Ask one question. Which of the cases are they taking to Supreme Court to determine this? Is it that of Honorable Justice Omotosho, which has now been decided by the Court of Appeal, or the other one?
That's what I wanted, Justice Wali. That's what I wanted to ask you now. There is a case before the Supreme Court as to whether they're defected or not, and that's before the Supreme Court. So if you're saying...
Which of the cases?
I think the one by Okojumbo, right, has been taken to the Supreme Court.
Let me explain that judgment for you. Let me explain that judgment for you so that you appreciate it.
All right.
There was an ex parte order given without jurisdiction. Right Honorable Martin Egbule contested it at the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal quashed everything that Okojumbo did. They are now saying they want to go to the Supreme Court. What is the issue before the Supreme Court? It is whether Wali even has the jurisdiction to grant that ex parte order. Let me tell you, there seems to be deliberate concealment of facts. I do not know if this is a Nollywood where people gather everybody, decide to conceal facts to them, maybe, so that we'll continue to have that bad organ effect. People are hoping on a hopeless hope. What they're expecting is not what is before the Supreme Court. And there is need for us to continue to have this kind of sensitization so that the public will be aware. What are the issues before the Supreme Court? Two judgments of the Court of Appeal, question everything relating to both Right Honorable Enye Edison and that of Okojumbo. Somebody is still saying Martins is not the speaker. Somebody is still saying that Martins needs to go to court to validate his speakership. This is a tragedy. This is a tragedy of monumental what kind of democracy do we practice?
Godspower, I know you're not very happy with the situation of things, but I want to ask you this question. So you're saying if the Supreme Court rules on Okojumbo's petition, it does not, let's say it rules in favor, it will take us back to what, Justice Wiley, or is it the Court of Appeal? Which is it?
Beautiful. What they are even going to do is to say what does the holiday has jurisdiction. The matter has not been determined on the merits. So even if the Supreme Court now say that Wiley has jurisdiction, the Supreme Court will now send back the fine to now determine the matter on the merits. But they give the public and the followers this false impression that what the Supreme Court is to determine is whether Martins is the speaker or whether they have defected. That's not what is before the Supreme Court. And I have consistently said it's not what is before the Supreme Court. Mr. Kalada, you know what is going to happen. Next time, when you come here on this program, I am going to come with a certified true copy of the grounds of appeal so that you will see the grounds of appeal. I also make sure that I come with the certified true copies of the grounds of appeal that was filed with respect to the judgment yesterday. Because if you have the certified true copies of the grounds of appeal, nobody will come and be telling you that the issue of defection, the issue of Martins and Egbule is not the speaker, was not deliberated. Who would say that? I promise you I will come with a certified true copies.
All right.
There is need for us to stop this misinformation of the public.
Okay.
I think
let's hear you.
I think my friend needs to appreciate one very simple fact that is maybe deliberately refusing to address.
Which is?
The issue as to cause of action.
What does that mean?
Cause of action, the reasons why you approach the court.
Okay.
Now, with that of the judgment of a motor show, is quite different from the cause of action that is pending before, if he's not aware, before the Rivers State Federal High Court, before the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt Division, sitting in Port Harcourt. It was initially in Court 4. Now, by the application of the respondent, in the circumstances, Egbule and others, the matter has been transferred to Court 2.
Yeah, Court 2.
And so, those are the matters that touches and deals with defection. If he has not or deliberately refused to address that, the judgment of a Omotosho, I wish you can even publish the entire orders that is reading. Never in about 10 to 11 decisions of that court, orders given, answering the questions in the positive in favor of the applicant. In all those 11 grounds, none talked about the legality or otherwise of the defection of the lawmakers. It talks about assuming there is no crisis, assuming there was no crisis in the assembly, assuming there was no disagreement between the executive and the legislature. Can the governor refuse to relate with the assembly? That was the whole essence of the Omotosho's case. It has no bearing whatsoever with whether what transpired on the 11th day of December is justified by subsection 3, as when they said it, that their defection was in accordance with the rule or the provisions of the Constitution. And now the story has changed. There was never a defection. And someone is saying it is just a political maneuvering and gimmicks. If you look at the decisions of the Court of Appeal yesterday, yes, to a relative extent, it has re-emphasized the fact that the legislature must deal with the executive one way or the other. And the executive cannot act on its own on issues that refers a referral to the legislature for consent or approval.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Why, in your opinion, because
Yes.
I know you're not part of the defense team,
Yes.
but why did they not mention that there was a defection in the Court of Appeal?
Remember the fight processes and acting in good faith, like I said, which is never a defense, because it was a somersault of a reasoning that the defendant withdrew his own processes when the person that took you to court initiated the process never did so. In fact, procedurally, it is the applicant that will withdraw the suit. and everything goes therein, dies. But for whatever that has happened, and we have gotten to this stage, we are looking at what is the legal implication.
But then again, if you've argued,
Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry,
Godspower,
I'll get to you, please. If you say that once a defense or a person withdraws to suit, or the defense withdraws to suit, that he's lost whatever right he has to defend himself, and that whatever is being,
but it has not. You have not lost the right to challenge the jurisdiction of court.
But
the jurisdiction of court can be challenged at any point in time,
I do,
including the Supreme Court. If the matters goes to the Supreme Court, the appellant has a ground to challenge the jurisdiction of the court below.
But he already withdrew his suit.
That is defense. That is the point I'm making. Though yes, I withdrew my processes, challenging the counterfeit written address, challenging the claims of the applicant. Now that I have a fault, I have challenged the Supreme Court has the inherent powers to invoke each jurisdiction to whether or not below has a jurisdiction to determine the suit.
Engaging in executive rascality. Mr. Kalada, let me make one point clear. I usually would not want to speak on the basis of if or making conditional statements. Once the law has spoken, I like speaking in categorical terms. So the question I would ask anybody, in the light of the Court of Appeal judgments, who is the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly today? My learned friend said that the judgment dwelt on the fact that there should be a relationship between the House of Assembly and the executive. So which of the assembly by virtue and the executive? So which of the assembly by virtue of that Court of Appeal judgment is the governor enjoined to relate with?
Should I answer?
Solve this problem. Just hold on, I'm coming. The Court of Appeal has held that judgment of Honorable Justice Thomas. So in the light of that, is government joined with it is the assembly led by Right Honorable Martins Amehulu. I have said here before that the assembly does not exist in the past. We have had where we have college that is willing to not that willing to fight the executive, they are willing to fight the executive, but the governor wants a situation where the legislature becomes an appendage of the executive. That's the problem we're having with us. The governor Satan that the house exists as a mercy, that they are only existing because he recognizes them. That's the having it. So the order of Federal High Court and the Court of Appeal. It goes even past yesterday. You're not going to the Supreme Court. There are two people are telling you your disobedience of the appeal. You're going to the Supreme Court.
The Supreme is not disobedience of the orders of the court.
You have
the right of appeal.
Should you the judgment of not the court at all of that makes this like that court upheld the judgment of Honorable Justice Thomas. So the issue of objection is not no problem. But obey the judgment of the Court of Appeal that says relate with Right Honorable Martin Amehulu. That's the problem we have in Rivers State. Okay. If somebody is willing to relate with the rightful House of Assembly, we won't have all this political crisis.
All right, let's pause. He asked you questions.
Yes, he asked and answered the question.
No, I want to get your own thought on that one. We have
no, we stand the decision of the court. The Assembly that is properly constituted upon the defection of the 26 lawmakers. Is that of the
let's leave.
You said the defection is before a federal high court.
Godspower wait.
You said the defection is before a federal high court.
Godspower wait. Now, as it is now,
yes,
with the court judgments, not court cases now, but the court judgments that we have, which of the houses of assembly
the defection of these lawmakers?
It's in court.
It's in court, yes.
No judgment
But if
yet.
I hold the view that Section 109, subsection 1G is self-executory, I also have the right. Excuse me. I also have a right. I also have a right to act in that. I also have a right to act in that state until the court says so.
Okay.
If I hold the view that they are not in existence.
But wait.
My God.
There is a court judgment, or there are court judgments.
Yes.
Determining.
Oh my God.
Certain issues on this matter. If we go by those court judgments, the question then again is, which House of Assembly should, not by your opinion,
Kalada, let me give you, maybe answering it the legal way is bringing some confusion. Let me answer you very plainly.
Okay.
In the layman's, if there is anything.
Let's go. In layman's view.
In layman's view. Kalada, if you let me not use you. Mr. A is the father of B. Mm-hmm. While in the house of the Mr. B, A has some rights. Upon death of Mr. A, the son, does he still have a right in that family?
Of course he does.
He doesn't. That is the circumstance. The matter of Omotosho predates their defection. What the undoing of their action is that defection. They lost all the rights and privileges.
But I thought someone is innocent until proven
that
guilty.
is for criminal matters, for civil matters. It is not about innocence. It's about
the question again is, my learned friend Jamala, just 1 minute. My learned friend Jamala, just 1 minute.
You are taking my time, my brother.
I'll get back to you.
In the light, just 1 minute. In the light of, they have a right of appeal.
Yes.
Okay. Take it that they have a right of appeal. Keep that right of appeal somewhere.
Yes.
Assuming you're not a party. Assuming the parties in that suit accept the judgment of the Court of Appeal, which of the assembly is the governor enjoined to relate with?
He said he doesn't want to address conditional and he's still using assuming and if. The parties in the circumstance, if they accept, if they accept the judgment of the Court of Appeal, they would have lost the right to appeal to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So they cannot, in the circumstance, do so. While you are dissatisfied with the judgment of court and you are exercising your right of appeal, you cannot be seen, you should not be seen to be acting in affirmative of what you are dissatisfied with. Because your grievance
exactly the reason why they say the governor is engaging in executive rascalities.
What do you make of that statement?
Sorry, of course, you disobey them and you go to Court of Appeal, and that's where you want to go and ventilate your anger. The judgment of the High Court, you disobey them. Judgment of the Federal High Court, the Court of Appeal, you're not going to the Supreme Court.
I do. That's his position.
Okay.
The governor.
No, but Godspower, please, let's not make it rowdy. But the Court of Appeal did say that the government was acting tyrannical.
That is to the knowledge of my Lord Justices of the Court of Appeal. It's not to my own knowledge.
Interesting.
That's to their own knowledge. They have the right to say so. But to my own knowledge, I do not think that the governor has acted tyrannically. I do not think so, because we all live here. But let me address one issue. I think my friend is, if I am dissatisfied with a decision and I have filed notice of appeal, transmitted record, file a stay of proceedings, stay of execution of that judgment, and I act in a manner that has been prevented by a court below, acting in that circumstance is not to be seen as being contemptuous of the court.
Did the River State government have its stay of execution granted while at the Court of Appeal?
I did not say whether granted. I said once I have filed that application, and I act in a manner so far prevented by the court below to do so, I cannot be seen until there is a deliberate and there is a clear statement from the court refusing that stay.
Okay.
Then I can be held liable for disobeying the court of law. But as it stands now, I wonder how from the information my friend got to say that the governor is disobeying the decision of the Court of Appeal as it stands.
All right. So once again, I want to ask, how does this impact the political drama in River State? You're not agreeing that the River State House of Assembly should be led by Martin Egbule, and you've said
they've lost all rights.
They've lost all rights.
Yes.
My friend Godspower Egbule is saying that they have their rights. So which way? I mean,
further to the Court of Appeal, further to the judgment of several judgments of courts. Not my personal opinion.
Okay, but you are arguing in that stead. That's what I mean. But then again, how does this impact River State? Because the governor would have to choose, the legal path to take. Yes, it's gone to Supreme Court.
Yes.
And like you've argued, Jamala, unless there is the granting of a stay of execution, it means that
refusal of stay. Refusal.
No, I'm going somewhere. Granting, it means that the Court of Appeal judgment stands. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if that is the case, how does this affect River State?
Generally, looking at the political unrest in River State, the people that suffer are the masses.
Okay.
But with respect to law, what will settle this political quagmire that we have found ourselves in River State is for how the issues that deals with defection, the suits that deals with defection pending at the Federal High Court can be determined one way or the other. Once that is done, it puts to rest every decision of a motor show and every decision of the Court of Appeal of yesterday.
All right. Okay. Let's get your thought, Egbule, because we're out of time and we need to rush this.
Okay.
So let's get your thoughts.
Mr. Kalada, very simple. Irrespective of political affiliations, political actors must learn to play according to the rules and indeed respect court orders, especially when those court orders do not, support their political interest. But courts of law are not courts of emotions; they are courts of facts. Whether I choose to say Mr. Jamala is the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly or Mr. Kalada, it's for the court to decide. But let us also remember that we'll come back on this again because the Supreme Court will definitely give a judgment on this. And when the Supreme Court gives a judgment relating to that of Honorable Justice Omotosho, believe you me, people will still come and tell you that let us now wait for that of the Federal High Court. In all of this, I have the greatest sympathy for the governor because he appears so distracted and, doesn't appear organized, consistently lost several of the cases. And I know how this can impact development in the state. Development has taken a backstage in Rivers State. Nobody is talking of education. Nobody is talking of service delivery. Everything now is how do we win a particular court judgment. Imagine, since the crisis started, every day it's been what's happening in Rivers State. Nobody is saying which policy do we have in terms of road network, which policy do we have in terms of education, which policy do we have in terms of healthcare delivery, which policy do we have in terms of housing, in terms of agriculture.
Godspower, I've got to go.
I'm saying, I insist.
I've got to go. My time is up. But thank you, gentlemen, for being in the studio.
Thank you, my friend.